guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a horror film from Argentina, Spanish language, English subs, released in the year 2015, directed by Mauricio Brunetti, and this film is called The Innocents. So The Innocents is set in the older times of Argentina during the slave trade. You've got this rancher who is absolutely rich. He owns these fields that are being worked by his slaves, and he treats them absolutely horrifically. He tortures them, he rapes them, and he even murders a few of them. So he's an absolutely evil man, and his son, who is very young, he's got a disease which prevents him from walking, and so he is absolutely devastated by what's going on because he's actually forced to witness some of the horrific acts that are carried out by his father. So the son ends up leaving for the city in order to get some further treatment for his ailments, and 15 years later he decides to return back to the ranch and to see his father again. So the father really hasn't changed much, and the only thing that's different is that he's got less slaves. So the son is with his pregnant wife, or pregnant girlfriend, I'm not quite sure which one it was, but he's with his pregnant partner, and they're introduced to the family, they're introduced into the ways of the world of this ranch, and it's a little bit too much for the wife, and the son is trying to get the accolades from the father. He's trying to get some respect from the father, but the father is just this absolutely evil man who wants nothing to do with his son. So the son is trying very hard to get his sick mother, who turns out his mother is very ill, and he wants to take her back to the city, but the father says no, she stays here. So this is where the son is going to start to suspect that there is something wrong with this ranch, and that there might be a supernatural force that is connected to the past that is basically haunting them and putting them all in danger. So whether or not that is the case is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Innocents. This movie was released here in Argentina for about a week. And so when it's released for a week in the cinemas, it's an indication that no one really went to see it. And for that reason, I was a little bit skeptical as to whether or not I wanted to see this film. So it came out here on Netflix Argentina, and I was very happy to actually get the chance to watch it. And I wasn't really going to lose much if it wasn't actually that good, but the expectation levels really weren't there. But I will say that this movie, although it's far from perfect, it was still an enjoyable drama as opposed to a straight-out horror film. It does bill itself as a horror film, and if you go in there expecting a horror experience, you might be a little bit disappointed, but it does have horror aspects in this film, but it definitely is a drama, which is ultimately its downfall. A little bit later in the film I'll go through its negatives, but I will say that as far as the drama is concerned, as far as the production is concerned, I thought it was very well made. It's a very beautiful looking film. It felt very authentic in the period that it was set. It shows you a side of Argentina that you really haven't known before. As far as the slave trade is concerned, I really wasn't that knowledgeable, and so it is very interesting to see how it was in Argentina when the slaves were about and how they were treated. It was very similar to the treatment of the slaves in the United States, in that no one respected them. People were treating them absolutely horrifically, and the movie does give you that horrific nature in showing you some really horrific acts of sexual violence and how these people were treated as basically animals and that they weren't seen as human beings, and that was a tragedy, and that was very scary to see how one person can treat another person based on their race. And so thankfully the slave trade is has been abolished. But these things still happen, is that we see another, some people will see another race and they'll think to themselves, okay, this person is below me. And that is very sad, but it's the way of the world. And so hopefully one day that can be abolished, that overall the thought process. So although the slave trade has been abolished, there are people out there who still think like this, and so that is a very scary, that's very scary in itself. So the movie does depict something interesting, and I thought that the way it was shot, the cinematography is absolutely fantastic. As far as Argentinian production is concerned, it is rare to see a movie of this nature being this good looking, and so when you think of good looking Argentinian movies, you think of movies that have been nominated for Oscars, foreign film Oscars, and so you don't really associate it with these kinds of productions, but I thought the production level was very, very high class, and it was one that was very impressive. I just thought it was very vivid colouring, and I really thought it captured the overall mood. I thought the score was very good, so as far as production is concerned, it was absolutely fantastic. And you got the acting from all the cast. Now once again, the drama element of the film is the problem, and I'll go through that a little bit later, but I thought the acting was competent enough, and you've got some very haunting aspects of this film that reminded me of Crimson Peak. which was a Guillermo del Toro film, in that you didn't know if it was actually haunted or you didn't know if it was going through this person's mind, and so there is a little bit of ambiguity there as far as the horror element is concerned. So very impressive to look at, and I thought as far as a 90-minute film is concerned, it was well worth the effort, and it was a lot better than I thought it would be. But unfortunately there is a big problem, and the big problem comes in the drama aspect of this film. The drama, it wants to be a lot deeper than it actually is, and I think the problem with this movie is that it's very one-dimensional. You've got this caricature villain who is absolutely awful, who's doing these absolutely horrific things, but he doesn't really have any saving qualities. And I know that you don't want to depict a person like this in a very good way, but it needed a little bit more of a three-dimensional approach, is that it felt very caricature, it felt very cut and dry. So you've got this villain who is played by this fairly well-known Argentinian actor who does a good job at playing the bad guy, but it was a fairly easy role because he didn't have to do anything else. He didn't really have to sway the audience here and there. You just felt that, okay, it's set in stone. This guy is bad. This guy is good. These people are the victims, and nothing is in between. So it's very, very cut and dry, and therefore you don't get the emotional depth that the movie wants for the drama aspect to work. And so as far as the drama is concerned, I just thought it does tackle a very troublesome subject, but other movies in the past have tackled this very same subject and have done it a lot better, is because the characters felt a lot more three-dimensional. They felt a lot more accessible, as opposed to watching something that the director is making obvious as to whether or not you want to follow this person or you don't want to follow him. So the acting from the son and the son's wife, I thought once again very one-dimensional, really paper thin. You didn't really care too much about what was going on, and for a film that's banking itself on a drama aspect, it just didn't work. And so as far as a horror aspect is concerned, there's not enough horror to really justify it as being a straight-out horror film. So in the end, what you get is stuck in between. You don't know whether or not this wants to be a drama, and you don't know whether or not it wants to be a horror film, but on both aspects it doesn't really have the material to really carry it over the line. So that was my biggest problem with this film, but as I said, it's still definitely a movie that I was just surprised by how well it looked, how well made this film is, how beautiful the cinematography is. But as far as the depth is concerned, I just thought it was a little bit thin, and therefore it does get in the way a little bit. So there are movies that do tackle the slave trade out there a lot better than this film did, but it's still a movie that I would highly recommend if you are a fan of Guillermo del Toro's style of film, and as a result of that, I'm going to give The Innocents 3 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching movies, and I'll see you later.